This is ridiculous. This is malpractice. Stephanie White should be fired immediately.
Dark side, salute. Did really leave the Indiana Fever in 2025 over Caitlin Clark.
Of the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White. People booing her. You had a lieutenant governor.
The WNBA just witnessed a stunning turn of events, and Caitlin Clark's name is once again at the center of the storm. Reports that Clark is stepping away from the Indiana Fever have sent shockwaves through the league, while Stephanie White is reportedly facing an emotional moment few expected to see.
I take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my players back. I ride with them 10 toes down all the time.
What began as another chapter in a heated WNBA season has suddenly turned into a situation with consequences far beyond one team. Fans are questioning the timing, the decisions, and what this could mean for Indiana's future.
A little bit of round of applause right now as the wrong fan was escorted out of the building and she'll retake her seat, and I think they got the right.
Behind the scenes, pressure appears to be mounting fast, and every new detail is raising the stakes. But why would Caitlin Clark walk away now, just when the league needs her most? The 10 seconds that broke the internet. Caitlin Clark has had rough nights before, but May 30th stood out for a different reason. The Fever walked into their game against the Portland Fire as heavy favorites, a 12-point spread,
lit up the pit for 18 and a career-high 12 assists,
coming off a tough loss to Golden State 2 nights earlier. Instead of bouncing back, Indiana got run off the floor. Portland dominated from the opening tip, and by the final buzzer, the Fever had lost 100-84. It was one of the worst games of Clark's career.
That's been their problem for much of the season. So you could slice this game either way, as this is how you know it's a very bad performance.
She finished with just 6 points in 21 minutes, stuck in foul trouble for most of the night, unable to find any rhythm against a Portland defense that swarmed her every time she touched the ball. Frustration like that rarely stays quiet, and this time a fan in the stands caught the whole thing on camera. In the second quarter, during a timeout, White and Clark got into it right there on the sideline. The video shows White animated, pointing directly at Clark more than once, slapping her own knee out of what looked like pure frustration. Clark's first reaction was silence.
After watching Stephanie White crash out on Caitlin Clark, I rewatched the Fever game and have every interaction between.
She sat there drinking water, looking away, not engaging. Then something shifted. Clark stood up, threw her hands in the air, and started talking back. Teammates Kelsey Mitchell and Michaela Timpson stepped in, trying to calm the moment down before it escalated further. What happened next made the clip impossible to ignore. White pulled Clark from the game entirely, sending rookie point guard Raven Johnson in to replace her. For close to 2.5 minutes, the face of the WNBA sat on the bench while her coach ran the offense through someone else. Clark did eventually check back in, but by then the footage was already spreading across every corner of social media, dissected frame by frame, by people who had never seen anything like it happen to Clark before. The reaction online was immediate and, in some corners, completely unhinged. Some fans zeroed in on a strange blue object near the edge of the frame and insisted the whole video had been faked using AI. Others pushed back hard, pointing out it was almost certainly just the padding on the bench seat catching an odd bit of glare. Sports outlets that reviewed the footage found nothing to suggest manipulation. It looked like ordinary compressed sideline video, nothing more. But the AI conspiracy theory revealed something real about the moment. People were so unwilling to accept that this could simply be basketball that they reached for the most extreme explanation available. Underneath the noise sat a more grounded criticism, one that had nothing to do with conspiracy theories.
It's fantastic, right? There's no criticism to be had. She loves the sport.
Fans were furious about the rotation itself. White had pulled Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull all at once early in the first quarter, right after Indiana had jumped out to an 8-2 lead. Portland answered with a 19-4 run, while the starters watched from the bench, and the Fever never recovered from that hole. To a fan base already on edge, That decision looked less like coaching strategy and more like sabotage. Some fans went so far as to accuse White of deliberately undermining her own superstar.
Virginia, a little bit north of Pittsburgh. Illinois.
Fans from all over came to watch Caitlin Clark.
Though no evidence ever surfaced to support that claim. Strip away the speculation, and what remains is a much simpler picture. A team that entered the night as heavy favorites got blown out on national television. A star player had arguably her worst game of the year. A coach, frustrated by what she was watching, challenged her player in the heat of the moment, the way coaches have done in locker rooms and huddles for as long as competitive sports have existed. None of that is unusual on its own. What made it different was the camera, the platform, and the fact that it involved the single most watched athlete in the sport. That combination turned one ordinary sideline flash of frustration into a story that refused to die. The rumor mill goes into overdrive. Once the video hit social media, it stopped being a basketball story and became something closer to a soap opera. Within a day, commentators who had nothing to do with the Fever organization were treating the sideline exchange as proof of a much deeper problem. The word that kept coming up, over and over, was trust. Speculation spread that Clark no longer trusted her coaching staff, that the front office had lost her confidence, that the entire structure around her was quietly falling apart behind the scenes. Nobody pushed that narrative harder than commentator Jason Whitlock. He didn't just suggest Clark had concerns about her situation in Indiana. He told her, publicly, to demand a trade immediately. His argument went further than most, claiming Clark couldn't trust anyone around her.
Caitlin Clark should evacuate America because the WNBA is mistreating her. You say what, JB?
Not her head coach, not the assistant coaches, not the general manager, not even the team president. He then extended the accusation to Clark's own representation, suggesting her agent couldn't be trusted either. It was a sweeping claim, built almost entirely on 10 seconds of footage and a hunch about what must have been said off camera. Whitlock wasn't alone in analyzing the clip, though other voices took a very different angle. Sports broadcaster Roz Goldon-Wood and former WNBA star Angel McCoughtry both weighed in publicly on the exchange, and their read was less about organizational dysfunction and more about Clark herself. Their argument suggested Clark might be holding back some part of her own potential, that a coach pushing her harder in that moment wasn't a red flag at all, but possibly something closer to tough love, aimed at getting more out of a still-developing superstar. It was a strikingly different interpretation from the trade demand rhetoric circulating elsewhere, and it reflected just how divided the analysis had become. The people who actually knew what happened told a much quieter story. On Monday, June 1, both Clark and White addressed the incident directly with reporters, and neither of them treated it as a crisis. Clark was blunt about it. She called it two people being competitive, two people who really want to win.
Also did a really good job in the second half of just like playing split game and shallowing out of cuts and, playing pitch and just putting them in a lot of action.
And nothing more. She went further, pushing back specifically on anyone trying to spin the moment into something bigger. There are a lot of people out there in the media or on TV, she said, who think they know a lot of things and are just blatantly wrong. White's explanation matched Clark's almost point for point. She described the moment plainly. She was challenging a player the way coaches challenge players in nearly every competitive sport on earth. She pointed out that similar exchanges happen constantly in men's sports without anyone treating them as evidence of collapse, and argued the only reason this one exploded was Clark's massive popularity. Her relationship with Clark, she said, was great. She used the phrase, "I ride with her," a small detail that stood in sharp contrast to the trade demand headlines dominating the same news cycle. According to White, the disagreement itself had already died the moment the timeout ended. The outside world simply refused to let it go. That gap between the two versions of the story says a lot about how sports narratives get built in real time. On one side sat verified, on-the-record comments from the two people actually involved, both describing a brief, ordinary flash of competitive frustration. On the other, sat outside commentary built almost entirely on inference.
Everybody had something to say over the weekend because of the huddle with Caitlin, Stephanie White. We've got Twitter just going out. Everybody's losing their mind.
Extrapolating a franchise-wide trust collapse from a single clip with no audio. Both existed in the same news cycle, competing for the same attention, and for a lot of casual fans scrolling their feeds, the louder, more dramatic version was the one that stuck first. It's worth asking why the trade demand version spread so much faster than the two people being competitive version. Part of the answer is simple math. A calm explanation from two professionals, downplaying a moment, doesn't generate the same engagement as a bold call to blow up a roster built around a generational talent. Outrage travels faster than nuance, and Clark's fame only accelerates that effect. Every clip involving her gets more views, more shares, and more hot takes than the same clip would generate for almost any other player in the league, which means even a routine coaching moment gets treated like a 5-alarm crisis the moment her face is in the frame. A body under siege. Behind every heated moment on a basketball court, there is usually something physical driving it, and for Clark, that something has been her back. This was supposed to be her redemption season. After being limited to just 13 games in 2025 by a series of injuries, Clark came into 2026 healthy, motivated, and carrying the weight of championship expectations that the entire Fever organization had built around her. For a stretch early in the year, that health held up. Then the back problems returned, and the season she had hoped for started slipping away from her one missed game at a time.
For the Fever out west, she's hoping that that's the only game that she misses, is excited to be back with her teammates. Now, during her opening...
By early June, Clark had appeared in only 11 games. That number, on its own, tells a story most highlight reels never show. A team constructed almost entirely around one player's gravity, her shooting range, her passing vision, her ability to draw defenses and open up everyone else, simply cannot function the way it's designed to when that player is sidelined. Every game she missed forced Indiana to reshuffle its offense, lean harder on secondary scorers, and hope the defense could hold up without its best two-way disruptor on the floor. The pattern repeated itself through the summer. Clark sat out entirely against the Phoenix Mercury as she worked through her recovery.
It happened a week ago when the Phoenix Mercury came to town. She was then ruled out of Saturday's game with a back injury. We haven't seen her.
When she returned against the Los Angeles Sparks, the Fever eased her back in carefully, limiting her to just 16 minutes. She finished that night with 9 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. Modest numbers by her standard, in a lopsided 106-92 loss. It was her first appearance after a 2-game absence and nearly 2 full weeks without any competitive basketball at all, a long layoff for a player whose rhythm depends on repetition. From there, head coach Stephanie White confirmed Clark would return again for a nationally significant matchup against the Las Vegas Aces, but again under restriction, capped between 20 and 25 minutes on the floor. The team made a point of avoiding the short, choppy bursts they had used in the Sparks game, opting instead for a more consistent, if still limited, workload. It was a careful, deliberate approach from the coaching staff, the kind of caution that suggests genuine concern about long-term health rather than short-term win totals. The toll didn't disappear once the minutes restriction lifted. Months later, after Indiana dropped a second straight game during a grueling stretch of the schedule, Clark spoke candidly with reporters about where her body actually stood. "This stretch is hard," she admitted. "My body is sore. I'm tired." Everybody is. It's not an excuse.
Obviously, I have a great team around me. It's not only me. I trust our medical staff a lot. I have my own personal people that have really helped me too. And
that last line matters. Clark wasn't using her physical state to explain away a loss. She was simply being honest about what an entire season of recovery, restriction, and pressure does to a 24-year-old body, carrying a league's worth of attention on every play. It's worth sitting with what all of this means for the sideline exchange that started this whole story. A player managing chronic pain, playing through fatigue, and coming off a career-worst shooting night is not a player in a neutral emotional state. Neither is a coach watching her franchise cornerstone struggle physically while trying to protect her long-term health and win games in the short term. The tension between Clark and White on May 30th didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened inside a season already strained by injury, recovery, and the impossible balancing act of managing a superstar's body while still trying to compete for a championship. There's also a quieter pressure at work here, one that rarely gets discussed in the trade demand takes and viral clips. Every minute's restriction, every cautious return, every decision to hold Clark out of a game carries real basketball consequences for a coach trying to win now. White has to balance protecting her franchise players' long-term health against a fan base.
The most important thing for us is Caitlin's long-term health, getting her back to 100% before we put her back on the floor.
A front office and a media cycle, all demanding results in the present. That balancing act creates exactly the kind of pressure that spills out sideways in small human moments. A raised voice in a huddle, a frustrated gesture, the ordinary friction of two people trying to solve a problem that doesn't have a clean answer. When the crowd turned if the Portland incident showed tension between Clark and White, what happened in August showed the opposite, and it came from an unexpected direction. The pressure this time didn't come from inside the locker room, it came from the Fever's own fans. On August 11th, before a home game against the New York Liberty, Gainbridge Fieldhouse crowd booed Stephanie White during introductions. For a fan base widely considered one of the most loyal in the league, that reaction was jarring. The boos traced back to a controversial incident days earlier. During a game against the Chicago Sky, guard DeJohnai Carrington struck Fever guard Sophie Cunningham.
Sophie Cunningham gets a hard foul, going up for a layup. Everybody has seen it at this point from Chicago's DeJohnai Carrington.
Across the face during a chase-down attempt. A hit serious enough that officials reviewed it and upgraded the call to a flagrant 2, ejecting Carrington from the game. In her immediate post-game comments, White said she didn't believe the hit had been intentional. That response didn't sit well with a lot of Fever fans, who felt their coach should have defended her own player more forcefully. By the time White stood for pre-game introductions against the Liberty, some of that frustration had turned into open booing. White didn't stay quiet about it. Before the Liberty game, she used her entire pre-game media availability to respond, delivering an emotional, unfiltered message aimed squarely at the noise surrounding her team. The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win, she said. We are united. We are connected. We will not be divided. She didn't stop there. Defending her players directly,
I think chemistry, continuity, this is a team that really pulls for each other. It's a really deep team, so you can't really key on one or two players.
And bluntly telling critics, in her words, that everybody else could go to hell. Then came the part nobody expected. After Indiana beat the Liberty 106-92, with Clark posting 22 points, 10 assists, and 4 rebounds for her 10th double-double of the season, she used her post-game press conference to defend the very coach some analysts had painted as a threat to her a few months earlier. I can assure you there was no way we were losing this game tonight, Clark told reporters, and I told her that before the game. She didn't stop at the scoreboard. That's my head coach, Clark said. I hated that our fans booed her before the game. That made me a little sick, to be honest. Clark went further, acknowledging that criticism comes with the job, while making it clear where her loyalty stood. You can disagree and this and that, and I get it. It's professional sports. People are going to boo, she said. But at the end of the day, that's our head coach. We're going to ride for her, and we're always going to have her back, and that's never going to tear our locker room apart. She closed with something even more personal, saying she loved White and felt for her.
That was because of, I thought we got stops, especially in the fourth quarter, and that was when we were able to put them away.
Knowing firsthand how heavy the outside pressure can get. Put those two moments side by side and the contradiction becomes obvious. In May, a 10-second clip convinced large parts of the internet that Clark and White were on the verge of a breakup. In August, with far more on the line and a far more public opportunity to pile on, Clark did the exact opposite. She stood in front of cameras and defended the same coach she had appeared to argue with months earlier. Not with a scripted statement, but with a genuine, almost protective response to her own fans turning on her coach. That's not the behavior of a player looking for an exit. It's the behavior of someone standing by the person she works with every single day. Teammate Sophie Cunningham, the very player at the center of the Carrington incident, echoed a similar sense of unity after the Liberty win, backing her coach publicly rather than piling onto the criticism. That mattered too, because it showed the support for White wasn't limited to Clark alone. It came from multiple corners of a locker room that outside voices kept insisting was on the verge of falling apart. When the players closest to a situation, the ones with the most reason to have real opinions about their coach, respond with loyalty instead of distance. That tells you something the outside noise consistently got wrong. What this means for Indiana's championship strip: away the headlines and the hot takes, and what's left is a team that has quietly been playing some of its best basketball of the season. By mid-August, Indiana sat at 21-12, good for fourth place in the standings, having jumped ahead of the Atlanta Dream.
Timpson and Reese will jump it up. How about this? The difference with who gets a top 4 seed, the odds.
Over their previous 15 games, the Fever had gone 11-4, a stretch of basketball that simply doesn't happen on a team fractured by internal distrust. Chemistry problems tend to show up in the win column long before they show up in a post-game press conference, and Indiana's win column has been telling a very different story than the trade demand headlines. White's own track record this season adds more context to who she actually is as a coach. This isn't someone who backs down from defending her players when she believes officiating has gone against them. After a heartbreaking 90-88 loss to the Liberty earlier in the year, one that ended on a no call against Clark during the final possession, White didn't hold back with reporters. "I thought she got fouled," White said bluntly. "I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games." She went further, calling the treatment of her team disrespectful and unbelievable, arguing that Indiana wasn't getting the same benefit of the doubt other teams received. That's not the language of a coach trying to undermine her star player. It's the language of a coach going to bat for her. Taken together, the picture that emerges is far more complicated and far more human than either extreme version of the story being pushed online. Clark and White are not enemies circling each other, waiting for the relationship to collapse. They're also not some flawless, conflict-free partnership either. What they actually are is two intensely competitive people, both carrying enormous pressure, both trying to win a championship for a franchise that has built its entire identity around getting there. Competitive people clash sometimes. That's not dysfunction. That's often exactly what it takes to push a team into contention. The real risk for Indiana was never a coach and a player secretly at war. It was the noise itself, the outside narratives, the trade demand rhetoric, the AI conspiracy theories, the fans turning on their own coach over a single post-game comment. All of it threatening to become a distraction, heavy enough to derail a season that, by the numbers, has actually been trending upward. White seemed to understand that risk clearly when she talked about people trying to hijack the league with division. Clark understood it too, choosing to publicly close ranks with her coach at the exact moment doing so.
I mean, first of all, two people being competitive, two people that really want to win, and I think a lot of those things happen all the time, and I know there's a camera on me, and
was least convenient for anyone hoping to keep the drama alive. In the end, this was never really a story about a coach and a player falling apart. It was a story about how quickly a single, unclear moment can spiral into something far bigger than the truth ever supported. 10 seconds of frustration turned into trade demands, conspiracy theories, and a season-long narrative that the record simply never backed up. What actually happened is far more familiar to anyone who has played competitive sports at any level. Two people who care enormously about winning, occasionally clashing, and choosing each other anyway when it counts. Do you think Clark and White have fully put this behind them? Or is there still more tension simmering under the surface? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more honest breakdowns of what's really happening around the WNBA, hit like, subscribe, and stick around for the next one.